Item B, adopt a resolution approving property owner notice and protest process for 2011-12 garbage rate increase proposed by Recology San Bruno. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Edmund Soon, Finance Director. The city has a franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno on February 28th, and in accordance with the agreements, Recology requested an interim rate year adjustment consisting of 80% of the CPI change for wage earners in the San Francisco area, and also an increase in disposal fees to be passed through to the customers. The result of these two adjustment calculations is a proposed rate increase of 1.447%. In addition, based on the feedback from the community and the City Council during the last rate application, Recology is ready to implement a residential 20-gallon toter beginning July 1st, 2011, with a proposed rate, monthly rate of $18.44, compared to the current 32-gallon rate of $23.44. The proposed 20-gallon service will be in the form of adding an insert to a 32-gallon toter. There will be some costs associated with the service that includes the cost of the insert and as well as the delivery of the toter to, and also projected loss revenues from folks that will migrate from the 32-gallon service to the 20-gallon service. So for instance, someone who is currently paying the $23.44 for the 32-gallon service, when they migrate to the 20-gallon service, obviously there's that $5 difference in revenues that would be lost for the Recology. Since it's difficult to estimate what the migration factor would be to the new service, Recology has agreed to basically front these costs and defer the recovery of this until the 2012-13 rate adjustment period. At that time, Recology will then be able to use the actual costs that are incurred in relationship to the conversion and also the actual lost revenues associated with the conversion. And then that would be brought forward to the City Council as part of the rate adjustment for that period, including the rate adjustment for then the subsequent period. Based on the proposed rate adjustment of the 1.447%, the 32-gallon toter will increase by 34 cents from the current $23.44 rate to $23.78. That still puts the city within the median in terms of the surrounding communities in the San Mateo County. Obviously, the cost of services in the various agencies depend on a number of factors, including the frequency of recycling, whether or not they have a single stream recycling operation such as we do out here in the city of San Bruno. Other factors may include the ratio of residential and commercial customers in the community. Staff is recommending that the city use a rate adjustment process for the proposed rate increase comparable to the notice and protest provisions of Proposition 218, which requires that a written notice be provided to the property owners 45 days in advance of a public hearing, following which the City Council can then act on approving the rate increases. The schedule includes then tonight's meeting, obviously, and then the notices would then be mailed out on March 25th, so to start the 45-day period. Following that, it would be then a May 10th public hearing for consideration and also consideration of the protest. And then subsequent to that would be a May 24th City Council meeting to conduct the second reading and then take an action to adopt the new rates. And then finally, if successful, then the new rate increases will take effect July 1st of the fiscal year. Staff in the City Council's subcommittee, consisting of Mayor Rain and Vice Mayor Salazar, met with Recology last week to review the rate increases, and the recommendation obviously is to bring forth to the City Council tonight and authorize the mailing of the notice and direct staff to schedule a public hearing for formal consideration of the rate increase. Staff's recommendation tonight for the City Council is to adopt the resolution approving the property owner's notice and protest process for the 2011-12 solid waste collection and disposal rate increase proposed by Recology San Bruno. One of the comments that was brought forth by the subcommittee was the kind of the constraint timeline that's involved in this process. The way the franchise agreement reads is that Recology has until February 28th of the calendar year to provide the rate adjustment request. We've since talked to Recology, and they've agreed to accelerate the request to approximately 2 weeks into February, therefore giving the committee and also City Council a little bit more extra time in considering the rate adjustments going forward. The general manager from Recology is here, also in the audience, so at this point in time, I'd like to offer any questions that the City Council has for myself or Recology San Bruno.
Any questions Council has for staff at this point in time? No?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I have 2 questions for Recology. One, can they give us an update a little bit on how effective our recycling has been? Are we slipping? Are we getting better? And secondly, I believe currently, or at least previously, you could buy a sticker or whatever for an extra bag pickup as versus having to call them ahead of time. Is that process still going to be available? And if so, what sort of costs are projected?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had, yeah, and while they're taking questions, a question for Recology, I guess, is what was the input for the 20 gallon? You know, and so it sounds as if you're going to, you're definitely going to implement it, and that's going to have a cost, a cost increase, obviously. So I'm just, what prompted you to go forward with with the 20 gallon, because I don't recall being a major outcry on it.
Okay.
Maybe I can answer that
Okay.
question. This item was addressed in several, if I recall correctly, of the resident protest responses, resident protest process, whereby we mail to every property owner in the city of San Bruno and give them an opportunity to tell you their vote essentially about or to protest if they wish that you not move forward to impose
Right.
this rate. In the process of responding to that mailing, there were, I would say, at least several of the respondents who commented that a smaller garbage container with a reduced cost would better meet their needs and their interests with respect to garbage service. So I think it's fair to say that this was an initiative that has been promoted most aggressively by the city as opposed to by Recology in the interests of the residents based on that mailed ballot or mailed protest process last year.
Well, my concern is that, and I know the process, and we probably, out of all the customers, we get maybe 100. I think that was the most that we've ever gotten, a little over 100 protest letters. And so now, maybe they're protesting the increase, and then they want a reduction cost, and now they're going to be faced in 2012 with an increase based on that reduced toter. So, as much as 30 cents or 40 cents a year is not a big deal, we may be faced with 2012 with a 30 or 40 cent increase plus an extra increase based on 20-gallon inserts. Yeah. Yeah.
You
So
are
I
correct.
just like Recology to address that, as to,
Yeah, we talked about that in some depth at the subcommittee meeting, and there is a demand definitely for it, and I think Recology, you're on, but you can probably tell us, factually percentage-wise, what you anticipate and what it's based on, because other cities do have a 20-gallon toter.
Thank you. We do receive calls in the office asking about the 20-gallon cart, and a lot of those calls, I believe, are stemmed from the rollout in the SBWMA service area, where Recology San Mateo County is now taken over, and they do offer a 20-gallon service. We try, knowing that some of our residents would want that 20, we worked with the city on developing this rate, and we took into consideration the residents and how this would impact them, and this is why we chose the insert, because of the cost-saving factor. We tried to be able to offer the 20-gallon at the minimal cost to the resident, and that's why we went with the insert versus a cart. A cart is approximately $32, and an insert is $18. So there's a big cost savings in that aspect. So that's how we came up. I mean, there was other factors involved, was the cost of the cart, the delivery. We'll have to bring in the carts, wash them, and rivet and insert into the new carts. We also, that is really the most sustainable option, because we can reuse the current 32-gallon carts that are already at the residents' homes versus having a surplus of unused 32-gallon carts. We also had to take into consideration, like Edmund had said, is the lost revenue from the 32-gallon to the 20. The migration rates in our surrounding cities, there was a 40% migration in Pacifica when they went to the 20-gallon cart. There's also approximately a 30% migration in Hollister, which was our closest Recology city at the time, to take into consideration. So the migration in some of these cities was high, and there is a possibility of a high migration. And so,
What is that in numbers? And if say San Bruno experiences even a 20% migration.
okay, let me just tell you 1 second, sorry.
About a few thousand.
If we took into consideration our residential 32-gallon customers, if we did a 30% migration, which is where we started, that's 2,340 out of the 7,800 32-gallon residential customers.
That's significant.
So that's kind of why we chose and worked with staff to keep the rate of the 20-gallon at a reasonable cost, as not to drive everyone to the 20, for those who just could utilize it. And there are some residents that could utilize that 20.
Through the chair, on that issue, there was a couple things, and I think I remember we were just like this. I'm sitting here and you were standing there, and the thing was, where's the incentive for the resident who is recycling more? So this might be that option. But I know you're saying the loss in revenue, but in essence, we're having less disposal. So in essence, you're having less to go to the landfill. Is that not correct?
That's not correct. There's no change unless the customer increases their recycling habits to encourage themselves to go to the 20. If they can see that there's a 20 and then the next 6 months they say as a family, let's try and recycle more and see if we can create less waste. But as it stands right now, nothing's being pulled from the waste stream. They're just moving their garbage from the half-filled 32 into the 20.
And compost, is that something also being?
That's something that can be explored, it's very encouraged.
And we had a question about
Yes.
how are we doing with recycling?
You're doing tremendous with recycling, Mr. Reichel. Participation is high. We have an over 90% participation rate, and we have no complaints from our recycling processor for contamination. So you're doing fantastic.
Tell us about the stickers.
The extra bag tag stickers are available. You can call our office at 583-8536 and order them through a customer service rep. And last I remember, they were also available at the counter in City Hall.
Okay, anything else for Recology?
Just on the recycling,
Yes.
the city needs to meet a threshold. Isn't it 50% still, and how are we achieving that goal? The city.
The city as a whole in diversion, don't have that number directly in front of me.
We'll get that information
well
for
over
you.
50.
That's reported on an annual basis. And the last I heard about it, there was a problem with the calculation in our apparent compliance several years ago. So I'm saying the absence of my knowing anything about it right this minute suggests that we are well in compliance, but we will get you that specific information.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions regarding this item? Okay, thank you, Kirsten. Action? Not everybody at once now.
Through the chair, I'll adopt the resolution.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.